Hello, it's James, and back to using my iPhone for the videos. Seeing as I couldn't find a video editor program on Android that I can use the same way I can use iMovie. So at least for these purposes, that's what I'm doing. And this video is the top 10 time travel movies, and with I think two exceptions, they're largely all straight up travel back in time kind of stories. And we'll get to the exceptions later on. Okay, so starting off with number 10, we have a movie called Timecrimes. And it's from 2007. And it's I don't think it's the debut film, but it's an early film from Nacho Vigalondo, and kind of the one that got him noticed. And it's a Spanish film, and it sort of involves a husband and a wife at their house, and the guy is using his binoculars and looking out, sees some woman in the woods taking off her clothes or whatever, and then goes to investigate, finds her unconscious, and gets attacked by this guy with his head wrapped in pink bandages. And he's able to fight him off and escape, and makes his way to this building. It turns out to be a scientific facility. And a guy sort of fills him in on a little bit of what's going on, and he ends up climbing into this mechanical device that inadvertently, because he didn't know what it was, sends him back about an hour and a half in time. And he does this multiple times, trying to fix things or investigate, find out more about this guy with the pink bandages in his hand, who seems to be stalking him. And it's sort of the things he's doing. It's one of those, I guess, sort of like predestination loops, like the movie Predestination, where the things he's doing end up causing the things he was experiencing. And it's not one of my more favorite time travel movies, but it is very clever the way they work things out in the movie. So if you're into foreign films and time travel movies, well, this is a suitable match. There's a much more suitable match later on, but I'll get to that. So that was Timecrimes. Number 9 is it's one in the Butterfly Effect series. Now, Butterfly Effect is a classic movie, no disputing that. Butterfly Effect 2, most people could probably take it or leave it. They don't really care too much for it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty good. It was retelling the same kind of story, a guy who can go back in time, reliving his own memories in his past. And they have one tiny connection to the first movie, where the guy's researching stuff online, and you see an article with the picture of Callum Keith Rennie, who played Ashton Kutcher's dad in the first movie, who also had this ability. So, but the third one, Butterfly Effect 3 Revelations, I thought was a big improvement over the second one. Still not as good as the first one. I mean, how could you be? And this one was actually part of the After Dark film series. It was included in one of the seasons of that. And this one involves, again, a guy who has the ability to travel back in time throughout his own memories, and he does it while laying in a bathtub full of ice, and his sister, who he takes care of, monitors his health, his safety. And I believe he's investigating the murder of not his girlfriend, but murder of a woman. Yeah, he witnesses a murder, a woman being murdered, and he finds out that the guy they catch a guy, and he's about to be executed, and he is informed that the guy might be innocent. And so he wants to go back in time to try and prevent the murder and find out who the real killer was. Find out who the real killer was, prevent the murder entirely if he can. And as he jumps back several times, he keeps obviously changing things inadvertently because he's resetting events in his life, and goes back to change something, comes back to the present, and finds that he solved one problem, created another or several. And I thought this was an interesting twist because the first one involved a guy going back to try and change his own past, make his childhood friends' lives better, make his life better, discover the meaning of his blackouts. And the second one, like I said, kind of retells that story. This one, he's doing it for a particular purpose. He's trying to solve a murder, prevent a murder. And so, but I thought they did a much better job in this one than the second movie. So, for time travel thriller purposes, I would recommend this. You could try and forget that it's part of the Butterfly Effect series, except that they use the same plot device as the first two. So there's a tenuous connection. But still, like, I recommend this movie. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a suitable entry in the franchise, if it needed to be a franchise to begin with. So it's the Butterfly Effect 3, Revelations. Number 8 was a TV movie called 1201. And at the time I saw it, I had taped it off TV. At the time I saw it, I considered it a serious version of Groundhog Day. Because you've got Jonathan Silverman, Jeremy Piven, and Martin Landauer in there. I don't remember where, because it's been a long time since I watched this. But Jonathan Silverman and Helen Slater are the two leads. And she's a scientist, and they're working on the particle accelerator, and something happens. A guy gets shocked around midnight, Jonathan Silverman, and he wakes up, and the day's events are playing over again, and he's the only one who realizes it. So it's the same thing that Groundhog Day is going through, and the same things are happening over and over again. He gets to memorize certain things, certain events are going to happen, and he gets closer and closer to figuring out what caused this. It was the particle accelerator. Now, it's not really a spoiler in that you find out what's causing the time loop, because while you never find out what it actually is in Groundhog Day, it's very reminiscent now of Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, where you find out that Happy Death Day to You was a science experiment that was causing this. And those movies are great. Those are hilarious horror comedies to watch. And this one's just more of a serious version. And I thought it was neat for the time. Again, like I said, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I liked the time loop aspect of the movie. And Jonathan Silverman and Helen Slater do a great job. So if you can find it, I don't know. I'm sure it probably exists on VHS or DVD somewhere. I haven't seen it. I haven't really been looking for it, but it might be online somewhere. I don't know. It's called 1201. Number 7 is a movie called A Sound of Thunder. It's a movie by Peter Hyams, who doesn't really direct much these days, because his last few movies kind of bombed, and this was one of them. This was like a bomb, critical bomb, financial bomb. I still thought it was pretty neat. Well, Ben Kingsley's weird haircut aside, got Ben Kingsley who heads a company who allows rich people who can afford it, rich people to travel back in time to prehistoric times to hunt dinosaurs. Now it's in a controlled environment where they only hunt dinosaurs and beasts that are about to die of natural causes. They don't hunt the ones that are supposed to remain alive, because it's very much the quote-unquote butterfly effect. And when they get attacked, someone is forced to kill a dinosaur, and someone else literally comes back with, they step on a prehistoric butterfly, and they come back with it's stuck to their boot. And everyone thinks everything's fine because they killed the dinosaur that was trying to kill them, and then the world starts to fall apart, like heat waves and storms, and it turns not quite a disaster movie, but things are getting worse and worse. And so it culminates in trying to go back to where this all started to prevent the initial problem, to set things right, and maybe destroy the machine that's causing all the problems to begin with. So you got Edward Burns, Catherine McCormack, Ben Kingsley, and I still think it's a pretty neat movie. I don't think it deserved the hate it got. Based on I think it said Ray Bradbury's story, and yeah, I think it's worth watching. A Sound of Thunder. Number 6. This one's really neat. This is a Tim Burton film I don't think gets enough recognition. It's called Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This is where a kid is told a story of, I think by his grandfather, of him living way back in 1943 at Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This home he lived at with all these kids who have particular powers. And he ends up going to the ruins of this old building and traveling back to 1943, where Miss Peregrine has created this time loop where I believe they live the same day over and over again, but it's in order to protect them. I think it involves something like a missile about to drop, because it was in World War II. But everything resets at the end of the day. They live their lives. It's just in the frame of this one single day. So it's not like they're living the same events over and over again, because they're living in this one house. So they're also being... It's been a little while since I watched it. I've been meaning to watch it again soon. And they are being hunted by people who want to, want to take the children, or by these creepy looking monsters. But it's really, really a neat movie. Eva Green is the titular Miss Peregrine, and I don't recall if there were any other... let me see. No, it's... Chris O'Dowd is in there somewhere. Oh, Samuel L. Jackson, right. I believe he's the main antagonist. Asa Butterfield is the kid. Okay. And Terrence Stamp is in there, Judi Dench. Yeah, see, it's been a while since I watched it, but great cast. Great movie from Tim Burton, who some of his movies can be hit or miss, like anyone. But I think this one deserved a lot more recognition. Very neat once I got to see it, because I didn't know much about it when we had it at the theater, and I just picked it up and pleasantly surprised. Number 5, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Number 5 is a Canadian film that nearly made my list. It's a Canadian time travel movie called Fetching Cody. And this one stars Jay Baruchel and Sarah Lynn, takes place in Vancouver. And it's basically Jay Baruchel's friend, Sarah Lynn, I can't remember their characters' names. She's a drug addict, and she overdoses. And he wishes he could save her. And he stumbles into this junkyard, and this guy running the junkyard tells him he has this time machine. And it's this old easy chair with these Christmas lights all around it. And he sits in it, and he actually travels back in time. And he has to do it a few times, because he's going back in time to try and save her life, get her off drugs. And he'll go back in time and then fix things, and she won't know who he is because they never met, because he went back too far. And he keeps going back to try and save her life and set things right. And it's one of those, it's like Primer, which was going to be on my list, but I didn't want to repeat a movie from a previous list, where it's an interesting time travel movie without having to actually spend all the money on the visual effects on showing the act of time travel. Just he sits in the chair and flash the lights or whatever, and he goes back in time. It's the story that's important. And this one was really interesting. I owe a former coworker, Jeff, for recommending this one to me. Let's see, Fetching Cody. Number 4 is another foreign film time travel movie, and it's called Reset. This is a Chinese film from a few years ago, and I talked about this one on the podcast, the Movie Madhouse podcast, and it involves a woman who works on this scientific team that are trying to perfect time travel, but none of the subjects, I think they tested on animals, none of the subjects survive. Their body begins to break down. And these criminals kidnap her son, and because they want the technology. And they're forcing her, they give her an hour to get the technology working, or they're going to kill her son. And her son ends up dying. They end up killing her son, and then she is enraged, and she goes to the facility, gets the time machine working, goes back in time about an hour. And she sort of goes to fix things right, stop them from kidnapping her son, and take care of the criminals. And things go wrong again in a different way, and so she's already back in time, and she uses the machine to go back in time again. And so she's meeting up with multiple versions of herself the first time, and then she goes back in time, and that involves there being 3 versions of herself. The original, the second timeline, and the third timeline. And the longer you've been back in time, or the more you go back in time, the more aggressive you become. And so you've got 3 versions of the same woman that are competing against each other. 2 of them are helping each other, and then it gets a little confusing, but it's really neat how you get 3 versions of the same actress working against each other and these criminals fighting for this technology. So it's called Reset. This one I just picked up. I picked up at Best Buy. It was in a section with other foreign films, and this seems interesting. It's like produced by Jackie Chan. I'm like, I'll check it out, and it was really neat. Number 3 is a movie called Project Almanac. I believe it used to be called Welcome to Yesterday. And this one got delayed a few times. It was produced by Michael Bay, and I don't know if it had a good critical rating, but it didn't do very well financially. And I don't know why, because I think it's amazing. Not the number 1, but it is number 3. And it involves a guy who gets accepted into MIT, very smart guy, but he can't afford to go to MIT. And he's hanging out with his friends in the basement, and they just happen to go into his dad's workshop. His dad died about 10 years ago on his way to work in a car accident. They go into his workshop, and they discover a trap door in the floor, and they find inside it this equipment and these blueprints for essentially a time machine, on how to build a time machine. And because they're all really smart guys, they end up building it. And it starts small and then gets a little bigger, and they're able to carry it in their backpack, and they go back in time. Now they start using it to do fun things, like going back in time and playing the lottery to get money, going back in time to attend this huge outdoor concert like Lollapalooza and stuff. And they come back to present day, and only a couple minutes have passed. And they think what they're doing is harmless, but each time they go back, again, like the butterfly effect, these ripples of what they're doing are radiating outwards. Like, because they went back to this concert, they didn't go here, and because they did this, this person wasn't injured in a car accident, but because this person wasn't injured in the car accident, this other person was, and it ends up being one of their friends. And someone's parent was a pilot, and because this happened, they got depressed and they crashed a plane, and then it all starts spiraling out of control. And it's another case of someone has to finally go back to the very beginning and try and stop it before they ever got going. And it's so cool. And it's largely unknown actors in it. It's not a handheld movie per se. Handheld shot. It's not a found footage or something movie. A lot of the movie is handheld because at one point the guy says, record everything. So a lot of what you see, someone is holding a camera on them. Any one of the friends or whatever. It's usually the sister of the main character. And so a lot of the movie is from the perspective of looking through a camera, but some of it's not. So it's not a found footage. It's just how it's shot for most of the time. So that's Project Almanac. Let me see. Okay. Number 2 is the first of 2 exceptions. This one is called Lapse. And this is a movie, again, from a few years ago. And it's a group of friends, 2 guys and a girl, who live together in an apartment. And someone in their apartment complex dies, so they go over to his apartment to get things together, I believe, to see if he had any family or whatever, to get his things to them. And they discover his apartment window looks directly across the complex to theirs, and there's this machine that keeps spitting out these Polaroids. And they find out that this machine takes a picture at the same time every day. It's either night, I think it's at night, 8 o'clock at night or something, and takes a picture the same time every night of their apartment. And they look at these photos, and it could be like one or two or all 3 of them doing something, but they don't recall ever doing this. And then a day will go by, and then they end up in the same position doing the things that the picture depicts. So they discover that this machine takes a picture 24 hours in the future. And they come to the realization that, so I apologize, it's a little confusing, where they try and doing things to make the picture happen. Like, well, what did we do to make this event occur? So they do things, and then they realize they have to keep doing things to fit what this picture depicts. And I say it's an exception because it's not exactly a time travel movie, but there's an element of something taking place in the future and manipulating the present to affect the future, if that makes sense. And things go wrong as they want to do, but that's essentially the starting point of the movie, or to get you enticed, I guess, get you interested in it. It's called Time Lapse. And number 1 is the other exception, in that this isn't exactly a movie. It was a limited miniseries on TV. It was about 8 episodes, but there's not going to be a second season. It's called 11/22/63, and it's based on one Stephen King novel called 11/22/63. And so, because it was one novel split into 8 episodes, it's essentially like an 8-hour plus movie. I'm considering it, at least. And if some well-renowned movie societies or lists can consider the 3rd season of Twin Peaks: The Return as one long movie, as they put on the top of some of their lists, because that one was basically one long script, one long shoot, and they didn't know that's why we didn't know how many episodes there were going to be, because they chopped it up and edited it into episodes after they shot everything. So it was essentially like an 18-hour movie that they chopped up into a season's worth of episodes. This is on a much smaller scale, like an 8-hour time travel movie. And this is James Franco is an English teacher, and his friend runs a diner. It's Chris Cooper, and James Franco comes in. He's having lunch, and he meets with his soon-to-be ex-wife, who's brought divorce papers for him to sign. And in the time that it takes for them to have their conversation and sign the divorce papers, Chris Cooper leaves, comes back, looks like shit, looks all shaggy and ragged, and is sick, collapses, and then tells James Franco's character, to Jake, to come back tomorrow and I'll tell you everything. And it turns out that he has a portal to the past in the closet in his diner. And it goes back to October, a day in October, like around noon, a day in October 1960. And it's always that time, that day, that year. You go back, regardless of how much time you spend there, you come back to the present, only, I think, 4 minutes will have passed. And you can go back and you can change things, and you come back to the present, and the change will have taken effect, either small or large. But if you go back to the past again, everything you did is reset. Like if you go back there and kill somebody important, come back to the present, it will have a ripple effect depending on how important that person was or what they were going to accomplish. And if you want to fix things, you go back to the past again, do nothing, come back, it will have reset everything, like you never went there. And so what Chris Cooper's character, Al, wants him to do is go back to 1960 and wait around for 3 years and prevent the assassination of JFK. And he's tried a few times, and this last time he went back, and there's a thing where he says, you have to be careful, because if you mess with time, time will mess with you. And this last time he went through, he got a physical, fit as a fiddle, and he developed cancer. He's like, it gave you cancer? He's like, I didn't have cancer before I went back. So he lasted, he's only ever lasted to sometime in 1962 or early in 1963. And he had to come back, and he's going to die, so he needs Jake to continue his mission of sorts. So, and I don't know how many times I've watched this now. It's so good. The costumes, the cinematography, the acting, of course, the time, the way they tell the story, episodically or not. The actors in it, you've got T.R. Knight and, what's his name? T.R. Knight, the guy from Grey's Anatomy, who plays Josh Duhamel. Okay, T.R. Knight from Grey's Anatomy, who's a nice guy on that show, plays a complete despicable character in this. Plays the ex-husband of the female lead in the show, Canadian actress Sarah Gadot. Excuse me. And Josh Duhamel from Las Vegas or the Transformers movies plays an equally despicable, abusive husband in this show. Excuse me. And various other actors sprinkled about the show. But it is so good, so well done. Such a great time travel story. And that's why it's my number one. 11/22/63. Okay, so that is all for this video. I have a few more to choose from. I thought this one would be the most interesting next video to do. And so, thank you for watching, and toodles.